Manchester City up to 5th in the table. They're 4 points off Liverpool at the top with a game in hand. Meanwhile, Chelsea down to 8th. Everyone ahead of them with games in hand, with the exception of Leicester City, who won today away against Newcastle. Well, let's welcome in, shall we, Stevie, Nicol and Frank Lampard, Frank Leboeuf to the show. More on Lampard in a moment. But, Stevie, I feel we should start with Manchester City, given that first half of the performance was a bit special, wasn't it?
You know, it's funny, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been listening to people talk about certain masterclasses, which basically has been sticking 10 men behind the ball. If you want to see a masterclass, you go and watch the first half of this game. I mean, it took them 10 or 15 minutes to get themselves sorted, but once they did, they completely overran Chelsea. Chelsea had no answers to anything they did. They couldn't stop the movement. They couldn't stop on a bit of the ball. They couldn't close the ball. And quite frankly, if it had been 5-0 at half-time, that would probably have been the correct score. So this at last was what you would call a masterclass of football.
Frank, it was men versus boys. It was like an FA Cup tie, someone from the Premier League taking on someone from the third tier. It was incredible.
It was absolutely fantastic from the citizens, and I've been critical towards Guardiola and his game, his tiki-taka, and the fact it was boring. But today it was more direct, more vertical, and I really enjoyed the way they played. Now, talking about Chelsea, there's so many things to say, and I don't think I have that time to explain everything. But first, tactically, the 4-3-3 that didn't work, especially when the Blues didn't have the ball, lost the ball. The first line was erased very quickly by the citizens. Instead of putting maybe ZH and Pulisic coming back, down on the same line of Kovacic, Kante and Mount, which I think they did in the second half, and I think Frank Lampard asked them to do so, but it was too late. And the worst for me is the third goal, the 34th minute, where, how can you do that, playing 1 against 1 in a corner kick for you? It means that you have a lack of leaders in the squad, where N'Golo Kante, Azpilicueta, Thiago Silva should have said to the others, we play a 2 against 1 at the back. That's the minimum you can do in a sort of actions like that. And after that, I see kind of same type of players at the Chelsea in the Chelsea team. Those players were physically not strong enough, maybe technically, maybe with the pace, which they don't use, maybe except Pulisic today. But same kind of type of player with pretty light, physically not ready for battle, especially in the middle of the park. When I see Rodrigo, for example, in the other side, I don't know, something's wrong. Something has to be changed. Something has to be changed in the field, on the field. Sorry, I don't talk about Frank Lampard. That's not on my duty to say anything about that. But Chelsea has to react, but react mentally as well, where they all have to work together in order to do something on the field and not let the game go like they did in 30 minutes.
Stevie, they just look absolutely shell-shocked. Stevie, look at the camera. Oh, Stevie can't hear us. No, battery's gone. No, that's that. Jurgen, I know I'm going to bring up Chelsea and you're going to want to talk about Manchester City, just the performance that they've put in today.
No, it was an outstanding performance by Man City. Obviously, as Stevie said, right, it was a masterclass. It was a lesson. But I also think, now that it's not that bad for Chelsea, losing a game like this. Chelsea is in a transition. They brought in a lot of young players. They are on their search of a new leadership within the group. Young players that need to find their space. There's Harvard's on the bench. He hasn't found his space yet there. So there will be still a lot of experimenting. There will be still a lot of pain to come with that development, with that growth. There is no growth without pain, and also not for Chelsea. So it's not that bad. They win the next 2 games. They look a lot better then, and nobody talks about it anymore. You need those kind of games to learn. You need those kind of games to grow, also as a group. So you have to have these moments to go through and then sort it out. And Frank Lampard, he will sort it out. It will be all fine. So I'm not that negative on Chelsea.
Like it or not, we have fixed our technical issues with Stevie. What did you make of Chelsea today, Stevie?
Well, the only thing I can think of is that Frank didn't react after, 15, 20 minutes when City completely were destroying them. In my opinion, the one thing he probably could have done, and I thought was clear, was you have to bring everybody in tighter and make them go round the outside, because quite frankly, they were having their way with them. They were going through the middle, running in behind. I mean, you name it. So had he at least done that, brought the full-backs in particular, and said, OK, come round the outside, then everybody would have been able to at least try and deal with what City were throwing at them. But Frank didn't react, did absolutely nothing, and the game just by 3-0 was completely gone.
He talked about the players being shell-shocked. Was he shell-shocked?
Absolutely. I'm not sure at all what Frank Lampard was thinking coming into this game by matching up Manchester City in terms of their formation. Both Giroud and Tammy Abraham on the bench. And you go with a false nine as you knew City would do, given the fact that Gabriel Jesus continues to struggle in the absence of Kun Aguero, who's just can't shake his own injury worries. And you allow City to play their game. You are at home trying to beat City playing their game. And despite all the struggles that we've seen from City and some of their early season inconsistencies, we've always known that City have incredibly talented players. That when it clicked, they would beat you badly, can beat you badly. Now, on the face of it, to Jürgen's point, history will show a 3-1 City win, and that mightn't look so bad. But the truth is, when you're Chelsea and you're in the kind of spell that you are, and it really could have been 5 at the half, as Stevie was saying, and you're under pressure and you're looking for a response, that is not what you hope for. This game, this opponent and this performance does nothing but drain the confidence of Chelsea even further. Now, they have a big few weeks to come, and maybe they can get results and turn things around. And the one thing we've seen this season is you put together 3 or 4 decent weeks, all of a sudden you're back in the top 4 reckoning, and the conversations change. But right now, Frank Lampard cannot be sitting comfortably, because this is as bad a position has been in, given the money he spent, and given how poor Chelsea have been, not just today, but in the weeks leading up to this.
How uncomfortably should he be sitting, Gab?
Well, there's reports out here already in England that his position is under review by the club and whatever else. Personally, from what I've been told, I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I mean, when you spend as much as Chelsea have spent this past summer, your position as a Chelsea manager will always be under review. That's just the nature of the job. I think from the club's perspective, certainly going into this game, when they were aware that they were on a poor run, their attitude was, we believe in Frank Lampard. We're not going to make a change unless things go really, really badly off the boil, unless we believe that, we're in serious danger of not finishing top 4 or something like that. When you look at where they are in the table now, as Shaka just said, a couple results can go and change that. So I don't think his job is in jeopardy, but I think there's certainly an awareness of some of the choices he made this year, some of the mixing and matching, changing formation, changing personnel. It's taken him a while to get kind of the setup that he wants. And then, of course, he goes and he changes it for this game by leaving out Abraham and or Giroud. I think more questions will be asked. And I think Lampard himself acknowledged that after the game, that he's going to look back and see where they can do better.
Could a more experienced manager, a Thomas Tuchel or Allegri, of course, who are already being linked to this job, Stevie, could they do a better job with these players?
I'm not so sure. I would suggest that today, those names that you threw at me there would have made some changes midway through the first half. I don't think Frank Lampard should lose his job, but I will accept that today I think his inexperience shone in the first half when he basically sat in his hands and did nothing.
Jurgen, what's it like when you're a manager, obviously when you're a coach of Bayern, what is it like to be under that sort of pressure, and how do you deal with it day to day? How do you get out of bed? How do you not just want to hide away from all the press and all the criticism and all the abuse from the fans? Because no matter what you say, you must be aware of it.
Oh, you're always aware of, obviously, the pressure, the expectations, the media attention. It is just part of your life. It's a lifestyle that you chose, and probably 80% of your salary goes towards the criticism that you can receive from everyone, especially after you make some mistakes. And managers, coaches make mistakes the same way players make mistakes. It's just normal. I mean, Frank will look back at that game against Man City maybe in a couple of weeks' time and think through it again and say, okay, I could have made maybe this change or that change. I mean, it's a whole team that is in a transition. It's a whole team that is looking for leadership now. It's looking for somebody that kind of, after the, as Stevie mentioned, after the second goal, that maybe, calls the guys together and says, okay, guys, let's not concede a third one. Let's calm down a second, maybe go down into the locker room at halftime with 2-0 down instead of 3-0. But this is a normal learning curve. Everyone goes through. Andrea Pirlo goes through that process at Juventus, and so does Frank Lampard, so does Stevie Gerrard at Glasgow Rangers. So when you go into management, this is just part of your growth, But that growth will never end. You can be 60, 70 years of age, and I had a fantastic coach at one point at Sampdoria Genoa, Cesar Luis Menotti, obviously World Cup winning coach with Argentina in '78. And he told me at that time, he was already 70, he said, Jürgen, I constantly learn. I'm just learning, and I make mistakes week in, week out. So that's just part of it. And I think, in certain moments, you just kind of have to step back a second, have to look at it from the outside. You have to admit when you make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with it. If Frank says, I should have done this or that, probably. But then you got to move on. You got to move on because there's the next game coming up, and especially in this time period over Christmas, New Year's, and they go every 3-4 days, so you don't have that much time to think about it and just move on and go into the next one and learn, keep learning.
Jurgen, obviously the spotlight on Frank Lampard and on some of his signings as well. Let's talk about Timo Werner, who made that big move from the Bundesliga to the Premier League. Critics are saying, it's one thing to do it for Leipzig in the German league, but this is a step up and a step up that he's unable to do.
No, he's not unable to do it. He will kind of grow into this role. It will take time. It will maybe take a year or maybe two. But he definitely has the potential, he has the talent, and he has also the willingness to listen to his coach and to go through these tough moments. And the same is with Kai Havertz or with any player going into Premier League coming from abroad. This is a big step, and we're looking at Christian Pulisic. It's a learning curve. It's a maturing phase that they're going to go through. Some go a bit faster through that, and some take a little bit longer. But if they have the grit, if they have the willingness to go through that pain also and deal with setbacks, they're going to make it eventually. And I tell you that Timo Werner will make it.
Frank, as a Chelsea fan, you're kind of thinking, I don't want to give you a year or 2 years. We've spent a lot of money on you. We want you to come in now and we want you to score goals. We need you to score goals.
Yeah, well, people have the tendency to get impatient, and we are living in a dictator of emergency, where we want things, immediately. And but it takes. I agree with my colleague. It takes time to adjust. The thing with Timo Werner, he adjusted very quickly because when he first came, and the first day that he played for Chelsea, he scored goals, and suddenly something broke up, and lately we saw maybe the worst of Timo Werner, but he's going to come back. Everything has to be adjusted in a way to make sure that the team is going to work together, going to find a solution together, and of course it's going to take time. And we are going through also a pandemic where we can see that every month we put the head of any coach under the guillotine, Guardiola at the beginning, then Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, lately Arteta, who 3 games ago was almost out of the Gunners. Now it's the time of Lampard.
We do that even though there's not COVID, Frank. We do that. That's what we do every day.
No, but I'm saying that
Everyone's stuck there in that guillotine at some stage.
No, but I understand. But I think we have to learn from our mistakes as well to maybe give more time to players and talk about something else. You know, Frank Lampard, as a young team, yes, we can say and point some weaknesses on his game, of his tactics, of the players' form, fitness, but being, being very harsh, we will be very harsh to say, oh, he has to go. He's bad. No, okay, fed up now. He's been 6 months at the head of Chelsea. He spent 250 million. He's bad. Bye-bye. No, it doesn't work like that.
Question of the day then, Stevie. Here it comes. If this was Solskjaer, you'd all be telling us that he should be sacked.
Not at all. Not at all. I told you last week, if Frank goes 8 games without winning a game, then that's when you start asking for his head. Guess what? Ollie actually did have a stretch like that previously. And we did ask for his head. So unless that happens to Frank, then I won't be asking for Frank's head.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.